So today we're talking about self-constructing. This is from Likkutei Sichos, volume 1, page 166. It's on the from Bamidbar 12 to 16 from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. There's a thing called holy foolishness and unholy foolishness. Holy foolishness is above reason and intellect. Unholy foolishness is below reason and intellect. We can transform unholy foolishness to holy foolishness. For example, there's a woman, a disloyal woman. In Hebrew, we would call her a sota. What does it mean? That her husband told her, don't be alone with that man, and she was. And so it's like she's found secluded with this man who's not her husband. It's like she turns away. So it's foolish. It's so foolish because according to the Jewish law, she had to drink. If she claimed she wasn't guilty, he had the right to divorce her. She's an adulteress, right? It's completely against the Torah. So he could either divorce her and move on. It's not clear whether he could be with her because she may be lying. If she says, no, I didn't do anything with him, she says, I want to be with you. I didn't do anything. It just looks bad, She's allowed to go and drink this fluid that has some charcoal, has ashes, and has there's a beautiful color on the building because of the sunset, and that has a name of God on a parchment dissolved in the water. In order to bring the husband and wife together, God's willing to nullify the name. So basically, we have to think of it as like we have to turning away. That's what foolish is. It's turning away from reason and intellect. From turning away from reason or conventional wisdom and go beyond and even more holiness beyond the rational. So instead of going like, oh, we don't even have common sense, we go to above sense, like super sense. And this idea that humanity, immaturity, underdeveloped, limited, finite, is, ignorance is not the same thing as foolishness. Foolishness is different than all that. Foolishness is stupid, reckless, insanity, delusion, trespassing. And we can think of it like a pendulum because it has to go from one side extreme to the other extreme side. Only then can it settle in the middle and be in balance. Once it's already been on an extreme, God willing, we could stay in the middle. We don't have to go from like super unholiness to holiness. If we're in the middle, we could keep making the middle more and more, So this is also this idea that we break out in all directions. Wherever our center is, that's where our compass is to all directions. So breaching limits and boundaries requires a middle in order to have edgelessness. What does that mean? That means we could break out of any structure of negative material. Could be dark. We could call it like dark traits or unholy traits. We're in a web, we're in addiction, we're stuck, we're attached, we're out of control, we feel small, we feel restricted, blocked. It's not, which is not actually a building. When we're building, it's ruins. It's the demolition of such a structure would be considered a construction. You wouldn't say that you're actually destroying something valuable. You're saying you're destroying for the sake of building. So this is not really considered destruction. You call it construction. It's not creation, it's construction. We're doing construction means we can breach limits versus just going on that pendulum, right? So when we break out in all directions, that's why the middle, we know holy, we know unholy, we know, right? And even from the normal rational work of the middle path, instead of letting it go past the parameters, so we can do a lot more than if we kind of stay in the unholy or the foolish. In other words, we might be saying there's a very holy foolishness that's above reason, above the middle path, that goes beyond, but it's literally springboarding off of the unholy. If you stay in the middle, you're already above the unholy. So you could be constructive, you could be creative, you could be normal, if you want to call it normal, instead of going past the edge, because you know where the edge is, you know which one is which. A building composed of like an empty vessel, it's abandoned, it's just a shell. We call it a husk. In Hebrew, it's called klipa. It's just the exterior. It's the superficial. It's really the opposite of a building, because it's a destruction of kedusha. Kedusha is holiness, but it also means separation. So we have a people that are in the house we take away the outside of the house, we still have, a construction. It's just missing a wall, right? We still have a building. We're just missing a wall. We have to rebuild. But if you have nothing on the inside and only on the outside, it's really empty. It's like the opposite. You're almost calling a house something that's not a house. There's nothing in it. There's no, or a building is like an empty building. Like, it's just a shell. It's just a scaffold, right? So there's this inverse relationship. We have kedusha, which is wholeness, holiness, sanctified, complete, fullness. And then we have like Yerushalayim and Tzor. So it refers to the city of Tyre, is Tzor in Hebrew, and the city of David is Yerushalayim. They have this alternating up and down relationship, mutually exclusive. As much kedusha is as much fulfillment on the inside, as holy and complete and enriched and beautiful inside the house, as empty is on the other side of as empty and as like just external, like a skin, and the inside is totally void. So we have this up and down mutually exclusive. It says this relationship between, Tyre and the city of David, Yerushalayim and Tzor. We can offer up the foolishness, the beyond rational, to be free from spiraling out of control. When we know we aren't in control, even though we can become, obviously addicted anywhere or anytime or anyhow to the control we seem to rationally get, but we really don't get. We can recognize we have a need for foolishness to go beyond the limits of reason. This is, in other words, saying that we have this idea that we want to be like in control. And then we see we're not in control, right? What are the 12 steps? We're powerless. We need a higher power. We're not in control. We trust that something else could save us, could help us. So not something else, but like that with the help of the higher power, we could be saved from this addiction that is controlling us. What we thought we could control, we thought we could control life. We used ABC, and ABC is now controlling us, right? So this idea that we could take that desire that has to be rectified through giving up control, in advance, give up control. And that's a holy fool. Rather than having to go into the klipa, into the shell, it's just a shell of control. It's not real control. And in everything and anything, we can use that yearning to burst past, right? Like the ritual, the regular, the routine, the so quote unquote normal, to not stay inside of the expected outcomes. The expected outcomes could be like empty houses. You think, okay, I'll be rich. But what is the inside of being rich? On the outside, it's having a lot of money. But what's the inside? It's just a shell. What does it feel like to have this money? Are you a slave to the money? Does the money control you? Do you have any friends or family? Do you have a social life? Do you have hobbies? Are you having a high quality of life? Do you breathe fresh air and have good drinking water and tasty food? Do you have fresh food? Do you have access to nature? Like, there's so much more to life than just being controlled by the money we try to control life through. So that's just one example. So even those who think their soul lacks nothing, and who therefore consider the above less and irrelevant, must realize that there's always higher levels to attain. We know Hashem is infinite, so infinite levels are reachable in our divine service. This is, and I want to say, yesterday I learned that the word avoda, which is ayin vez dalid hey, which is worship, actually is related to the word ibud, which is with the same letter, the second letter of the alphabet, which of the aleph beis, which is beis, is also vase. It could be read either, could be said either way. Depends if there's a dot there, like pronunciation. So, the roof and the floor as one entity is what the. So this is from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Moshe Gitler, saying the Friedrich Rebbe, his predecessor, his father-in-law, said the roof is the Torah, the heavenly and holy, and the floor is the mitzvos, and they're fulfilled by the physical objects of the physical world. So the highest of the high should have an impact on the lowest of the low. So in other words, the roof, right? And we know that the Torah is eternal. Could you reach the roof of eternity? When? For eternity? So there's this interesting idea that physical things have an end. That's the point. At some point, there's a beginning and an end. So everything in the physical world. So we make these physical things become merged with eternal. So we make the roof and the floor as one entity here, meaning the roof, which is, we're looking at here as the how much kedusha, how much guidance and reassurance and quality, and on the bottom we're looking at the building, right? So we're building, the floor is based on the foundation. So we're building from the floor to the ceiling and the ceiling to the floor. And we can actually think that the trial practice, because the practice which has to do with destroying the ruins, which often we could feel very guilty about. We might even feel ashamed. We can thank God for teaching us how, like, whatever it was, for me it was food, feelings, I won't go into much more, maybe even weed, are closest to me. Weed meaning smoke, because it's breath. So food, feelings, breath, and even and speech, right? So these are closest to me, and that I have a huge will, a huge tolerance for delaying gratification, that I could connect with infinite pleasure and delight. And I'm going to stop here, but I don't feel a lot of the time that I actually do have such a huge will or such a huge tolerance for delaying gratification, or that I could connect with infinite pleasure and delight. But I do know that the very fact, if I can't, means we could explode over. So if we have barely any tolerance, that means we could have all the tolerance. If we have barely a tiny will, we could have a massive will. If we have very little pleasure or delight, we could have infinite pleasure, delight. How? Because this is our practice. This is our trial. This is our, as we remember how it started, the foolishness of short term. We could flip it. Remember, we could flip it. We turn away from the prize at the end of the tunnel. We just want the pleasure now. So we have very little pleasure. We can turn that over into turning away from reason, like what if there won't be more later, and say I'm fine if there's no more later. And in that way, just a small example, we could actually find ways to get past our reason. But what if there is no more later? Well, I could turn away from what if there's no more later. What if there's no more me later? And now I'll be okay even if I don't have it. So that's just one way to look at it. And I want to give credit to Rabbi Moshe Gitler, who brought the sicha, the speech from the Lubavitcher Rebbe that was written down, that we studied together as a group at chevra ahavas yisroel, a synagogue of sorts, a gathering place in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Be well. Bye.